Welcome to the Perspective Podcast. Josue here. As you guys probably already know, I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I attended the Oral Roberts University. Shout out to them. I preach at times, but as you already know on this podcast, we don't speak about that as much. And now I'm here in the United States of America, where I happened to meet Chase. You guys know Chase. Chase was born in the U.S., specifically in Texas, or you might call it North Texas. He attended the University of North Texas. He's an aspiring philanthropic creative. And what day is it today? October 18th?
Attaboy.
Yeah, October 18th. And you already know all this week he's been dedicated to that long walk on the beach. So we'll be able to get into that a little bit today. Chase Brown, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been better if Sao Paulo was on the beach.
Ooh.
Like I thought it was.
Wait, you went to Sao Paulo?
I went to Sao Paulo.
Ooh.
I'm trying to say it right. Sao Paulo.
Yeah, they say it a certain way. Like we say like a bunch of Americans, you know, they don't approve of that.
For real, bro.
She was like, grab your nose and say it. And I was like,
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo. Hopefully
Yeah.
that wasn't offensive. I apologize
Yeah.
if it was, you know, but that's why they tell me to do
Yeah.
it, you know. So.
And I mean, the Latinos already get mad at me for my Spanish accent, so I won't bring up any Spanish to not get another crowd angered on
Yeah.
this podcast.
Yeah, that'll be bad.
But no, I am running on 2 hours of sleep after this overnight flight. Definitely, 18 hours ago, I was sitting in Sao Paulo, sitting in the Southern Hemisphere after a great week.
Yeah.
And now I'm here on the couch, which we should have been doing, as you said, the audio couch, audio
I'm really
podcast
thinking
from this
about
couch.
it. I'm like, yo, this should have been the move instead of sitting at the table. This is it right here.
For real. And here, you know, barefoot, which did I tell you about the Jair video on YouTube? The podcast that we did with Jair.
Yeah.
The main reason why that got so many views
The
was
socks thing?
yes.
Yeah.
Because it got, for y'all to know, it got added to this playlist called Guys in Socks.
Wow.
Who would ever search for a playlist?
Yeah. You guys will blow it up, guys with socks or in socks.
Yeah. But I'm really good, bro. And then heading out to Phoenix tomorrow for a retreat with the boys, which I will still call you out publicly. You have a reason why you're not going on this one, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this makes 4 now.
Nah, it gotta be 3. It's
No,
3, right?
it's 4. LA, Atlanta, Texas, and this is Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
4 that you haven't been to yet.
I know. I'm going to the next one for sure.
All right, bro.
I got sent that meme. That's like I'll be there no matter what. that's my meme.
But you have a good excuse this time.
Yeah.
Not even excuse. You have a good reason this time.
Good reason.
So you good. But yeah, I'm doing well. How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been good adjusting. Obviously, you guys know, you know, the wedding. I think it's probably it's the first one we recorded since.
First one. So we've uploaded other ones, I think, since. But this is the first one that we've actually sat down and recorded since then.
Since the wedding. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got married it was last month. So just adjustment to that, you know, being married and all that stuff, you know, coming back, honey, I'm home, doing all that stuff. I did it once just to try it out. You know, when you grow up, you watch Disney Channel movies and they do stuff like that. You know, I wanted to give it a try. So I did it.
What was the reaction?
She was just like, oh. I said, yeah, I just want to give it a try. You know? So it was one of those. But yeah, so that other than that, it's been good, you know, just working.
You know, you just got a ring on your left hand.
Ring on my
and
left.
Star Wars socks on.
Yeah, it's different. Shout out to it's actually Alba's kids gave this to me for my birthday.
Yo, that's crazy.
And I didn't wear it for like 2 years because I didn't really need to add a reason for it. And then when I started working business casual, well, let me get some socks. So
That's crazy.
So I put it to good use. But besides the Rangers playing today, I think they're probably starting here at some point soon. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, man. We're about to hit the 4-year mark. Or actually, when we release this podcast, we've hit the 4-year mark
Yeah.
of the Perspectives podcast.
Yeah.
And so we're going to spend a little time celebrating, spend a little time reminiscing, spend a little bit of time talking about the future and kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
As y'all listeners and subscribers know, it's been a crazy summer. It's been a wild summer.
Yes.
And we've been going with the flow. We've been enjoying life. We've been making the most of it, making the best of it. and still recording as we can.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing last year. And so we're going to recap that. We're going to share what some of our lessons were, what some of our favorite moments were of the last year, and kind of share a little bit of what the future looks like. And so for that, the first thing that we wanted to share kind of off the top is a sort of like, as official of an announcement that is here on the podcast, but it's basically like a little shift that's going to be going on from here on forward, at least for the next year, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But basically is this shift of going from, striving for consistency to trying to strive for basically being fully led by the Spirit is kind of how I want to put it, but not making consistency the biggest thing, but acknowledging what's going on in life right now. Acknowledging that we've shown that we are consistent in what we're doing. And so from here, uploading and recording as opportunities come up, not trying to force things, not, letting other things in life fall through the cracks, and really, really trying to make what we put out and what we release to y'all as valuable as possible and as valuable to us as possible. And really only doing something whenever we really, really feel from the Lord to do that. And I'm glad to say that looking back on this last year, I don't think we ever put out anything because we felt like we needed to. Everything has been genuine. All the conversations have been enjoyable. But we want to make sure to not stretch that further than it might be able to go. And so, yeah, you'll still see us active on socials. You'll still see, all Josue's jokes. He needs to get back to the Confession Fridays, but we'll leave that on the table for now. Mm-hmm. You'll still see my walks on the beach every now and then, and personally for me, and then I'll let Josue share. I want to see Josue and Aiden continue to grow in their marriage, continue to grow in their relationship, and for me, I would love to see them continue to serve, even if it means the cost of consistency of this podcast, to where there's a lot of marriages, there's a lot of couples that once they enter marriage are like, oh, wait, all right, we need to step back for a year from any sort of serving and work on us. And then all of a sudden the baby comes quicker than they're expected. It's like, oh, wait, we need to sit back for another year and not serve because we need to get, settled into life, and they never get back to serving again. And y'all have already set the pace from what I've seen of wanting to still be involved in community, serve, all of that, not retreat like some couples do. Mm-hmm. And so I want to do what I can do to make that happen. Yeah. So yeah, bro, what you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys are able to just to clearly hear what Chase was saying. Mm-hmm. Just to reiterate the point, we're not saying that we're stopping making podcasts or anything like that. We're just the frequency, because I think we're releasing very constantly the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So we'll still be releasing. We'll still find people that we want to engage in conversations with. So we're giving you guys, awesome things to hear, and us as well. We're, having those conversations, and at times can be therapeutic. At times it's like, man, that's what I needed to hear. Mm-hmm. At times you save it and then you're reminded of a conversation months later, and it's something that you actually need to hear. So having these conversations have been great. So we're still here. We'll still be engaging as much as possible. We're just going to switch the frequency a little bit. But make sure we hear that, we're still here. So,
we still here.
We're still here. That's pretty much what we're kind of hoping to communicate there. But I was kind of looking through the podcast list here and seeing what we posted. I see a lot of under 15 minute episodes, conversations, and those were very strategic. We hope that you guys found those to be helpful, because we touched on a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And we'll definitely be doing a lot of those because we touched on a lot of different things that were very important. Crazy enough, I felt like I had a lot of people that would come to me and bring up one of those short conversations.
Same.
Like, man, something you guys said about this really resonated with me. And I'm looking here, and we went through a lot of different things. I'm seeing a lot of short conversations here. So I think I enjoyed those short conversations because it gave us an opportunity to look at a real life, not all of them were problems, real life situations and bring Bible to it. Whereas sometimes when we're talking to somebody, we're getting to know them. We're just getting to know them and who they are and how they're walking. But these moments give us an opportunity to really just take a step back, open the Word, and kind of see what the Lord might have said about that situation. So, what do you think about maybe that, or just some of your initial thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%, bro. Because one thing you're getting at is when we're hosting a guest on a podcast, we want to talk about things that are relevant to them. We want to honor them. And oftentimes we don't talk about what's going on in our life because of that, because we do want to honor them, and that's a perfectly fine thing. And it's cool because even in that, sometimes the Lord will bring up things that intersect with what's going on in their life and our life, and it brings fruit and encouragement. But yeah, in these episodes of like, how to show grace to friends while still calling them higher, like that was one that I felt like I had dozen people come up to me and be like, hey, like this was something that really, really hit. And then for me, which I'll get into this even a little bit more later, but like, what does it look like to process emotions in a healthy way? Like that's something that I think is such a relevant thing for our time, in our age group, generation, all that as we're maturing and getting older, but was something for me that I was able to express and kind of share my own processing in that, and share how it's affecting perspectives, the nonprofit, share how it's affecting friendships, share how it's even affecting this podcast, because something that I realized after that podcast, and that as, I started therapy at the beginning of this summer, is like, oh, I use this podcast more than I thought as a form of therapy, sometimes in a healthy way, sometimes in an unhealthy way, and used it to process emotions.
Yeah.
To whereas sometimes there would be, things where it's like, okay, this probably would have been best to process in therapy or whatever. But luckily, I have you as an amazing co-host who sets a safe environment and all that. But it was fun to really be able to do that, and set the pace for us to go with whatever the Lord was calling us to, and not feel pressure to just bring people on because we need to bring someone on, and truly be able to honor the guests whenever we do bring them on.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully that's what you guys were able to receive from us. Hopefully that was communicated well through that. Those smaller ones, like I'm just kind of scrolling through. I'm going back to about the beginning of the year. There was hope through trials. Who doesn't need that, right? Fasting. There was
The popular topic of fasting.
yeah, the very popular one. Stewardship. What's been going on with life? Kind of just touching bases on that. You talked about one thing that can be wasted, and why did we even release this episode? The churches one. I think that's always an important conversation, and how churches are ran and how society sees churches as a whole. What does it look like to process emotions, as you just touched on there? Unsuccessful. There's different poems that you had a chance, to be able to share on the platform.
And sermons of yours that we were able to share on the platform.
Yeah. I skip past that.
Yeah. As you typically do.
Yeah.
You humble man.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just like small messages, from the wedding, so just, I think if you guys remember, just from the very beginning, we told you all that we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Having conversations is a way to be able to engage the world. And through conversations, we're changing our perspective, and we're hoping that your perspective is also being changed as well. We're hoping that we are a safe environment for thought, for truth, for dialogue, in a way that, helps you as you navigate through life. whether you're a believer or not, I believe we've covered on things that even if you weren't a believer, you'd be like, oh man, that's very beneficial for me.
Yeah, man. I guess a question that comes up,
Yeah.
which I'll ask it so you can have time to think about it, as I thought about it for the last couple seconds, is how over these last 4 years, what are some ways that your perspective changed? How do you think your perspective has changed through these conversations? And I know for me, it's kind of simple, but it's still been profound for me, is I feel like I have deepened my knowledge and awareness of cultures a lot, to where before the podcast, I would say I knew some of the cliche things, like, African families it's a village. It is Latin culture. Their pace is, slower than American culture, Asian culture, respect, all that. But as we, even in the last year, as we, had the Korean cultural dinner and uploaded that Q&A to the podcast, as we had the Filipino dinner and uploaded that to the podcast, it's been something that I feel like the honor that I give cultures and the value that I give it has increased because of that, and I'm super grateful for it. And it would only been possible because of the guests that we've had on.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, my perspective has changed, and I think it's allowed me to be. For some reason, I'm just remembering the conversation we had with Nicole. And just certain conversations like that it challenges you as a person, to grow. Because I feel like growing up, I wasn't really able to express emotions very well. So you put up a wall towards that. You're like, man, I'm just gonna be very sarcastic. People don't even know I became sarcastic as like almost like a defense mechanism for something that happened in elementary school, and I still remember it. So I've always led with the sarcasm because I didn't always process the emotion. So as we talk to different people and you kind of hear their story, you hear their process, it makes you just take a step back and be like, man, like, there's certain things I need to process. Not even if it's not even bad, It's just some kid says something, and as a kid, you just remember everything. But that trickles to other things in your life. So, like that conversation I had with her, and I'm sure we probably had others throughout the years, but it changed my perspective of, like, dealing with your emotions, getting with your emotions, I think is very, very important. And I think even just like I see that in the short time, being married, I see that it's important to share your emotions, or even if not even emotions, your thoughts. One of the, I felt good in front of the camera because it was me, just doing my Jesus thing. But then when it comes to like podcasts, we're doing different topics, speaking about different ideas, different things. It made me think. It made me be able to communicate. I actually credit the podcast in my ability to be able to preach more efficiently from the standpoint of like being able to speak what's on my mind, what's on my heart live.
Spontaneously. In the moment, yeah.
In the moment. In these 4 years, I've utilized those things to be able to communicate with people. Not saying that if you're talking to somebody, they ask you a question, you got to pause for 5 minutes saying that's bad.
Yeah.
But for me, it helped me just to be able to respond to questions that may pop up, or even be able to engage people in conversations.
True.
Because I think like sitting down with people here, we had to learn the art of asking questions that help people open up. You could do that outside the podcast in real life without the microphone.
Yeah.
Being able to engage people in that kind of manner, I thought was really good.
Yeah. And for me, with going along with that same idea, with us doing this podcast, a little unique of having two hosts and then typically a guest, it's something where that is a little bit of a unique conversation style. Normally it's like one-on-one as a podcast. And so something that I've been able to take is making sure to bring and invite people into the conversation if they haven't talked in a minute. And so to where if you're in a social circle and if there's like 3 or 4 around you, it can be very easy just to go back and forth. But then I'm grateful the Lord's brought in my mind a lot where it's like, no, like include, these people that are in this conversation. So even though I might be going back and forth with this person, person B over here, I'm like, hey, like either what do you think about that? Or like, hey, like what's been going on in your life? And then from there, then I would be more than happy to have person A and person B talking and me not saying anything if I allowed for that type of exchange to happen. And so here, if I'm going back and forth, with a guest on a topic that is just really relevant for me, at that point I'm like, okay, how do I bring back in Josue in a caring way, in a seamless way? And then same, even whenever you and I are having like back and forth on the podcast, like, okay, like how do we get back to the guest and all that?
Yeah. And I think what you say is very important because it made me think about, James says, be slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. We always hear the expression, don't listen to respond, listen to listen. Being able to have a conversation podcast has helped me personally, like you were talking about, just listen to what somebody's saying. Because if you guys didn't know, like structure wise, we used to come up with questions. Chase still did. I had to give up on that because I just realized I couldn't be at my best if I was having to go to that next question.
Yeah.
Like I had to be able to listen to what they were saying, process what they were saying, and then be able to respond with a question if necessary from that point. And then obviously we'll still have a couple
big themes
that we'll be able to have a conversation with them on. So it really helped me with that point of being able to, bro, just listen before you even respond. Don't be so quick to always needing to respond, as well as like don't be quick to always needing to solve people's problems. I felt like I was kind of falling into that. I guess just the way my life has gone, by the grace of God, it's not to boast on me or anything like that. By the grace of God, like people will come and, ask for advice, ask for help. What does God say about this? And so I felt like I kind of got in that space where I was always felt like you was always addressing problems. So you're always responding to problems. Whereas at times I just sat here and I just listened. Even if somebody's sharing something, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to sit here and listen.
Yeah.
And I need to feel like, man, I got to respond so that they can, get better or whatever.
And so I provide value to them. Yeah. Because, it's such a simple statement, but it's one that I've said over the last 2 or 3 years more than ever in my life. Like, just thank you for sharing. Like, it's such a simple thing, but like that frees me from feeling like the need that I have to provide some sort of crazy insight or wisdom or answer or whatever, but also that I'm not just sitting there stoically and not actually listening to them, but saying like, thank you for like, hey, thank you for being open with me. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for sharing that and letting me receive and showing them that I received what they've said. And so with that, we kind of talked about, these last 4 years, but specifically over this last year, is there anything that comes to mind that has been like a lesson or kind of like a memorable moments for you?
Obviously there's a lot, but the first thing that comes to mind was, I feel like we had a really great conversation with Raleigh. And then obviously, not that you guys would know because you weren't here, but after that, like him and I spent another like maybe 50 minutes to an hour just talking some more about different things. And that's just the beauty of what we do. We don't just invite people on the podcast and then after they're done, kick them out the door. No, we have conversations.
Unless your
with
name's
people.
Street Hymns.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We
Shout
love
out
you,
to
bro.
Street. We have conversations. We're building community with people. So we share a lot. A couple of times we've had meals with people after the podcast, depending on if they have time or not. Just because it's not just, hey, come, let's record, we're going to kick you out. being able to do that with him, taking the time to stop and just have a conversation, I think for me was just really really cool. It was a really really cool moment, and I know we've done that in other podcasts as well, but it just comes to mind the conversation we had with him, all the things that we got to share there, as well as just taking that time to just speak with him afterwards. Yeah,
Dang. That's true, bro.
yeah,
Dang. Thanks for sharing, as I just said. For me, the one which I'd already mentioned this, but I'll go maybe a touch deeper on it here. But as y'all already probably know, even if you haven't listened to the first 25 whatever minutes of this podcast, this year the big theme has been, what does it look like to process emotions in a healthy way? And I'm grateful to say that I don't think I have the answer to that question, but I think I'm closer to having a way to approach it than I have before. And a lot of that is from conversations from this podcast I've mentioned it in probably 15 podcasts since we recorded with him, but Joel Willis saying pain that's not processed in the presence of the Lord is often used for a different purpose will mark the rest of my dang life. And even like Trey, like boundaries are like a parking lot. I'm like, dang, because at that point, I think literally the podcast before that, which granted this is going back, 2 years ago at this point, but yeah, literally the podcast before we recorded with Trey is like, are our boundaries keeping us from loving people how God would want us to love? If I'm gonna be honest, at that point, I did not have a very good relationship when it came to boundaries. I was cynical and I was like, yeah, boundaries are just a way for us to not love people how God actually wants us to. And then Trey comes in literally the next week and is just like, hey, nah, boundaries are like a parking lot. I'm like, so that's what a healthy relationship with boundaries looks like. And even that little dynamic was cool because something that I've learned, and I'll add context to this in a little bit, but something that I've learned is oftentimes us as believers have negative relationship or have an unhealthy relationship with negative emotions. What I mean by that is something that I've been learning through therapy, and something that I've been learning through the book that my therapist has been having me read. It's called Untangling Emotions. I want every single person in my life to read this book, at least the first 7 chapters. But what the author kind of talks about in the first bit of it is, as Christians, we often think that our emotions are as a result of our flesh. That because we're flesh and sinful, we have these dang emotions that come up and get in the way. When in reality, no, it's the opposite. Our emotions are as a result of the Imago Dei in us. We know that because the Father himself has emotions. Jesus has emotions. The Holy Spirit has emotions. They have the full gamut of emotions that we could feel. They have joy. They have anger. They have grief. They have quietness. They have all the things. And so where it comes into play for us is this emotion in alignment with what God's heart would be in that moment? And then from there, is my reaction to this emotion positive or is it sinful and negative? And so to provide a little bit more context, for anger, for example, like the Bible doesn't say, don't be angry. It says things like be slow to anger, as you have said. It says things like be angry, but don't sin on your anger, which goes towards what I just talked about of our reaction to those emotions. And so the thing is, us just purely feeling those emotions is not the sinful flesh in us playing itself out. It's not that we need to demonize these negative emotions as if a lot of people do. It is, we need to see if it's in alignment with what God's heart would be in that moment. And then see what our reaction is to that. And that is where our flesh gets in the way. And that's where our soul steps in front of our spirit and is just like, hey, like, no, like, yes, I'm angry, but I'm going to react this way, which is a bad way. An example that the book brought up is if a wife tries to do a favor for her husband and goes out and just mows the lawn, but breaks the lawnmower. The husband then gets back home and is angry. And it's just like he's just angry. Most Christians would say, oh, you shouldn't be angry. Like, you should forgive your wife, like all this. Yeah. In reality, I would say, as the book was kind of pointing out, like it needs to go a layer deeper than that. Because the thing is, like, the anger is okay as long as it's not, and I'm simplifying this, as long as it's not placed at his wife. If the anger is placed at God, like, dang it, my work is cursed, as the Bible says, like, what the heck? Anger at, dang, like, I'm going to have to fix this. Anger at, dang, I wish I could have came home earlier. Next time I'm going to make sure that I communicate more effectively. If it's a sort of a tool for inward self-reflection, it's like, okay, that's a great instinctive emotion and motivator right there. That's great. But then for his wife and that, he needs to be like, hey, like, actually, my proper way to respond to you in this moment isn't anger. It's something of like compassion. It's something of patience of like, hey, no, thank you for, the good intention of trying to, help me with the lawn and wanting to make my life easier. Like, next time, let's communicate a little bit more, but no, thank you for that. And so, like, that's a somewhat trivial example, but in that, for me, it's been, what does it look like for me to have healthy relationship with negative emotions? Because most Christians never let themselves go to those negative emotions. They never let themselves grieve. They never let themselves be angry. So they don't know what it even looks like to have relationships with those things because they demonize them and never let them go there. That was kind of long-winded, but you have anything on that?
No. I'm hearing you because I think it's funny because I'm like, I feel like I'm very, like, it's good. It's good. What you're sharing is good because I'm very like, I'm the guy that's saying, why do you need to be angry? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's good. But I definitely do agree. Like, I think we have to, my reason for saying in that case, why do you need to be angry? Because sometimes we do get angry. We don't produce the best results.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Which is exactly what you said. So I just come from that perspective of like, your anger led to that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you could be angry, but just place it on, not on, on your wife. Yeah. You could place it on so many different things. So it's constructive and then not destructive.
Yeah. And you have to process it before you place it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're just running a rampage around, like, that ain't good, buddy. Mm-hmm. That ain't good. The last thing that I'm going to share, which, I think this will be rather short, is I feel like I've learned this year deeper care for people, and sort of like this like love over mission and people over mission. Like in this, like for example, with this shift in frequency, like I want to love the people that you and Aiden are over our mission with this podcast. And if at any point the mission of Perspectives or this podcast is so important that I can't love y'all well, that's not a good mission. That's not a good culture. That's not what the Father's heart would be. And so many times we focus on, and this is something that we've talked about over the course of the year, but like this, this purpose, this whatever, whereas as I look through the scriptures, I see the Lord focusing so much more on how do we love people rather than are you fulfilling your purpose in life? And so, yes, is there something called the Great Commission? Yes. But in it, I would say there's something else that's just as complementary to that, which is John 13:35. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. Like that's what we're teaching them, is how to love one another. And so how are we going to teach them that? How are we going to fulfill the Great Commission of teaching them that if we aren't walking that out ourselves? And so I feel like a lot of times people can just be thrown to the side relatively easy for this, grand vision that we want to chase. And we try to say, oh, they're compromising our vision, or, oh, they're doing this, oh, doing that. But I think it takes a lot more self-reflection than what we often give it, to really see if our motives in those sorts of situations are properly placed. And so, yeah, I feel like that's been something those have been a couple things I've been learning this year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy because you sit down and you're, just processing the year, and just one, it makes you realize how quick you get back here in this spot. Because I remember we were sitting right there when we recorded the last one. Two, like how much can change in a year. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. You may be in a situation where you don't see the light, you don't feel hope. It all seems like it's lost. But a year goes by and so much changes. Like I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, man, like so many people's lives have been impacted in just 1 year. And so you may be in a position where you currently find yourself, and then it's like, that doesn't mean next year this is where you're going to be. That doesn't mean God's not going to open doors. God's not going to close doors, in that year. Obviously, for me, like, whether it was like the new job or getting married, just different things like that we would consider as doors being open, came with a lot of doors being closed as well. And even just, if we are talking the year, at the beginning of the year, it was either at the beginning of the year, or the end of last year, I felt the Lord was going to do a lot this year, and I'm sitting here and I'm just like, man, like, did he, did he do a lot, more than I could like think and imagine. That's how he does it, right? So it's like a lot can happen in a year. So you may be in a position now where you're going through something and you just feel like you're stuck. I'm never getting out of this. This is all it's going to be. No. A year, the Lord can change so much in a year. Heck, he can change so much in 1 day. So don't let that situation kind of define where it is you may be in a year from now. We have the privilege of hindsight is 2020 and looking back a year. But because we look back and we see his faithfulness, it gives us hope and promise for the year that's to come. We're speaking perspective-wise, but you can see it in your life as well. As of this day, October 18th, you may be going through a situation. Take that time, write it down. Say, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do in the year, God willing. We're all able to see another year here. But Lord, I'm believing that you're able to do a lot in a small period of time, because it's important. I mean, I was speaking to somebody very close, and they're just examining their lives the last couple of years, and they've just been filled with heartaches, heartbreaks, and death and loss, and all of these different things. And I'm trying to encourage them, trying to bring light, and it made me think. I had to go back and think of what the Lord is able to do just in a short period of time, and so, having these conversations over the last year, or living life over the last year, like, I'm like, man, like the Lord he really did a lot. He really did a lot. And in my life, in your life, as you're listening, today is a day that you can take a step back and say, Lord, I'm believing that you're able to do something different than what I've experienced these last however many years it might be in your life. And I'm not speaking about money. I'm not speaking about all these random things. I'm saying the Lord is able to bring you from one place to another that you may not even have expected.
Yeah, bro. That's beautiful. So as we start to land the plane here, I'm going to circle back around to some small little practical recaps for this year. And then we'll go talk about some of our best moments from some specific episodes, and then peace out from here to watch the Rangers whoop the Stros. Which, sidebar, what even is an Astro?
I don't know.
I don't even know if the Astros know what an Astro is.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave that for y'all there. You could reach out to us over socials if you happen to know. But some practical things for recap for this year. We didn't announce this anywhere. Well, okay. I should say this before we even get to that. But as a lot of y'all know, we lost our social media. Basically at the very start of this podcast year in mid-November of last year. And that was quite an interesting thing to go through. And so we were seeking the Lord's heart a lot whenever that happened, because we were trying to get the accounts back for about 3-4 months, even with the connections that we have who know people at Meta, like it just wasn't happening. And so the Lord finally gave us peace to start up new ones in March or April, whenever it was. And so honestly, a lot of our time since May, since we launched the new Instagram page and posted that kind of like 5-year recap video, like I would say a lot of the focus has been more so like, okay, what does it look like to retell our story on that page, to catch everyone up, and then from there kind of like push out, I don't want to say new content because that's not the right way to put it, but just new podcasts, new videos, whatever it is. And so it's been an interesting balance of like, okay, what does it look like to try to catch up on the Instagram, post all these things that we've like kind of shared before to like, honor that part of the adventure while also like still recording new conversations. Like it's been an interesting place to have like our minds in like 2 separate spaces. But still working on building that, like the social media page back up, and that'll just happen as it goes. Cause I mean, we put in 5 years of work into that last one. And so to think that we're going to regain that in 6 months, like, hey, God can do anything. But at the same point, like, I don't think it's fair for us to expect that you would do crazy stuff. We'll just do the work. But even with that, this year we did hit, at some point over this last year, over 400K streams across all platforms. Wow. YouTube is a pretty good chunk of that, with the clips that we're uploading onto there. So that helps. But yeah, across Apple Music, Spotify, random other podcasting sites that I'm sure different people use. Also I'll say, whoever, like the 5 people in Belgium and whoever's a couple people in India that download everything, shout out to y'all.
Shout out to them.
Y'all the best. But yeah, it's like, that's a cool thing to say.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for some people, like that isn't a crazy number, but for just a couple guys who just kind of like started this up, and we have our friend circles, but it's not like we had crazy platforms before this. It's like that's a cool thing to kind of have. It's a significant thing. And so going off of that, I mean, this year, like the streams were consistent, just as they were last year. Definitely there was a jump on YouTube as we were uploading more clips to there, but consistent streams on the podcast feed. And so even from there, which I haven't brought this up to you yet, but like this will be something that we can talk about as like finances and different conversations come up. But do we want to just start uploading onto YouTube, or do we want to keep the podcast feed just with different money and whatnot? So even that's just like different things that are floating around in my head. But yeah, so we don't know what's going to happen over this next year. And then from there, kind of as we've talked about a fair amount in this, introducing like those topic short podcasts, like those have been really great. We had less guests on this year, like because it was a little bit more difficult to schedule everything just with everything that was going on with us. It felt like all the guests, especially all the new guests that we were wanting to have on, like things just kept coming up, like Jalen Jones. we still owe you a podcast, brother. We still need to find a time where it works. We love you. But yeah, we want this year, and this is kind of the point of us shifting the focus from being frequency to value, or like, I still can't find the word for what just more intentional, making sure that it's really, really something that, that we like, just shifting from frequency to stewardship, I'd say, to really steward whenever the opportunities come up. But we want to get back to having more guests on, having more cultural conversations. One of our team members, Tiffany, that's something that she suggested to us, that we were like, yes, we 100% agree with it. We've kind of been doing with the cultural dinners, but we definitely want to get back to that. So those are some little practical, business kind of things to talk about. And then from there, I think the one other thing for, like, this is more so, what do we want to incorporate in this next year, would be, and this is kind of a phrasing, and you can add whatever you want to this, but like, steward this platform and offer it up to people. Like, that was the point. It was to invite people on to talk about their life, and not just to promote perspectives, and definitely not to promote us. But for example, you mentioned Joseph before we started recording, like, offering this as something up to him, that we can spend time with him and record with him. The podcast that we want to have with all the boys, like, that's something that, we can offer this up to Will, and really whoever else that this would benefit. Yeah.
And I think that's important, because I mean, we always, part of the bringing people on, is for different people to share their perspective, so it's like, man, you want to hear different voices. I'm sure you guys get tired of hearing us all the time. So it's refreshing. It's nice whenever we're able to bring people on and, like you said, give them a platform to be able to share what they have to share. Like you just said that number, it is blowing my mind, like 400,000. That doesn't even make sense over the 4 years. Like, those type of numbers, I would have never have guessed it would have gone to that point. In my mind, there's only like 100 people that listen over the 4 years. But I'm sure the number is a little different. I don't think we ever made about the numbers. We never made about the numbers and things like that. Like, obviously we were excited when more people were, listening. But we never made about, hey, we have to X, Y, and Z. So me just hearing that number takes me back. It reminded me when you shared that we were, like, ranked on Apple's what was it?
Nonprofit business.
I was like, what? We're just me and Chase just talking, and we're bringing friends, like, stuff like that. Like, it's like, wow, God, you really did all that. Shout out to whoever it is in India. I didn't know about the people in Belgium, but I knew about the guy in India. I talk about him a lot. Or the person in India. I don't know if you're a guy or a girl.
True.
Yeah, we're no idea, but shout out to you. But yeah, so, like, I'm sitting here, I'm still thinking about that. Like, I didn't even know it was that number. I would have never guessed. So I would have never guessed, because I never, kind of looking at the 4 years, I know we're about to end, but looking at the 4 years, I'm one of those guys that doesn't like to hear his own voice. I know some people are like that, so shout out to you guys that are like that, like me. Like, you don't like hearing yourself recorded on audio and video. For some reason, I just didn't like the sound of my voice. Not like I hated it or anything like that. I just don't want to hear it. It's kind of weird. So the fact that all of these, it was the podcast, I was able to reach all these people. I'm like, man, all these streams. I'm just like, man, like, how did that even happen? So that's insane to me. I'm speechless. I ain't got nothing else to say. I'm still thinking about that. So, yeah.
Well, for our last segment, you do need to talk a little bit. Okay, I actually do want to mention one more thing to incorporate in this next year. This is contingent on Mrs. Bompende's approval, but I still want to do one podcast trip a year. So
Oh yeah.
If we could fit that into the schedule.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, I don't know if it'll be L.A., New York, Atlanta calling our name this next year, but
Yeah.
you know, we'll see.
We're good with that.
Yeah. Hey, like we talked about in the groomsmen group text, we good? You need to talk to the wifey before you say.
We got that. What they call it, telepathy or something.
Telepathy.
Yeah, we got that going on. Yeah.
Y'all are just already in sync right now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Favorite moments from each episode with our guests. We got about 12 here. So, Mr. Bryce Thompson. What's one of the things? Granted, you were only there for about half the episode. Chaz stepped in for you. But what's something that you might remember from the episode with the Christian music connoisseur himself?
Yeah. I think for me, I was just amazed by the stances that he had about the kind of music he wanted to play and the environments that he wanted to play, even though, I mean, I don't know, but you would think financially there could have been more opportunities if he would have opened up for other things, but he was like, nope, this is what I want to do. This is what I feel called to. Like, I remember hearing that and I was just like, wow, that's something. Yeah.
And now literally 2 months ago, he started, which you probably saw on IG, throwing these joyful noise parties where it's a Christian party. It's a Christian house party with just Christian music. And it's crazy. It's blowing up. Yeah, for me, hearing about the house parties that he would throw in San Francisco or in the Bay Area, and his parent, like just the influence that his parents had on him, and the encouragement that his parents gave him was something that was really meaningful for me. With all the boys, Street Him, Chaz, Christian Mack, Paul Bernard.
Wow.
That was this year. We posted that. We might have recorded it earlier, but we posted it in December of 22. But yeah, with all them boys.
Yeah, that was. I think I remember thinking about, like, man, this a group of so many different individuals, kind of sharing. Because I know we talked about a lot of different things. We touched on a lot of different things, but it was cool just getting so many different people. I can't say like any one person was the same. It was cool just being able to like hear different people all talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
Having so many different life experiences too.
Yeah. And I mean, we even had the live studio audience.
Yeah, it
us,
was. Yeah.
It was a good thing. For me, being able to pray over Paul was a super meaningful thing. Shout out to Christian. Thank you for doing that, bro. With Tiffany Jones.
Yeah, Tiffany. So she's like one of the nicest people.
Yes.
I've ever met, and just her heart for others. Is just really. It's really seen by those that know her, and so Tiffany she's always checking in on me, seeing how I'm doing. But yeah, no, she made that long drive. I remember she was telling me like how far it was, but she was here on time, just excited to be on the podcast, to be able to share about her story. So I would just say like just the whole thing was really, really nice being able to finally get her here and introduce her to the audience as well.
Same. Yeah, I was literally going to say the same thing, man. I was just glad that we were able to have her on and, just let her share kind of what's going on in life. It was amazing. We loved you, Tiffany.
Yeah, she big video games and sports.
Yes. Yeah, we love you. You're the best. Ruth, those Christian dating hot takes.
Christian dating hot takes.
We were going wild.
Yeah, I stood up for that a couple of times. Shout out to Ruth. I know she's married and she's happy. I'm so excited and happy for her.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that was a really great conversation. Yeah, that wasn't even playing. That was just came by. We stayed there for like half the podcast. Yeah.
Like, if y'all have not listened to that, please go back to listen to that podcast and her takes on dating, because I think they're much, much needed for what's going on in this time. The Black Voices movement of circuit riders with Danny and Stephanie.
Yeah, that was a nice trip. Went out there to California, got to spend time with them, meet some of the people there. But just hearing about what God was doing in circuit riders, Black Voices, and just the impact that they were having, kingdom impact. it's just amazing because there's one of the songs they had released. I can't remember when, but that song was so powerful, worship song. So it was awesome being able to be there and just listen to Stephanie and Danny as well, and then listen to the song. I'm like, man, I'm connected to these people, So
Yeah, the one little quote that has definitely stayed with me is regarding the name. It's not exclusive; it's specific. And yeah, because I mean, to go back to it, I mean, whenever 2020 came around, like we had the panel conversations with different people. You and I had different conversations with where our mind was at with different things at that time, and in it, like there's different things that me with personality, tendency, or just whatever else, like there's certain things that I'm just like a little cautious about, and so I didn't really know much what was going on with Black Voices other than what Danny would share to us, and so I was just grateful to be able to have like a long form conversation with them about what their heart is, to whereas a lot of people could make judgments off of them and just off of a post or whatever else. And so it's grateful for that. Mr. Jake Rohr, the man himself.
Jake is, I think, out of a lot of people that we talk to, he's probably like in one of the most unique fields, because I think that's the one that like not interests me in that kind of way, but it's like so interesting, because I'm like, man, like you always hear to stay away from that field, run away from that field. You can get lost in that field. So it's awesome being able to see that the Lord placed somebody in that field and just the impact that he's able to have there. And that was really cool.
Yeah, bro. The responsibility that he takes on for what he does is something that's super, super admirable, and pursuing righteousness in all the situations, all the environments he's in is great. Also, would not be right for me to mention someone might have released their first exclusive rap song on that podcast. Someone by the name of a pseudonym of Butterman, maybe. So, go to that podcast if you want to hear him spit some bars. Mike Mack.
Wow, Mr. Mack. I don't know. I just remember us sitting there on that couch and him just being there. It was also another one of those conversations that, he just dropped gems about relationships and just the humility that he showed on that podcast and just who he is as a person. It's, if you listen to it, it's easy to really just take. It's really easy for that to be your takeaway from that conversation.
Yeah, for me, the how he's dealt with the weight of leadership was something that, and him sharing. I don't remember all the success stories, but I remember everyone who's gone to prison under his watch, and like that's what affects leaders the most, and how he's processed that with the Lord was very, very encouraging. Ingredients Dance Co. with talking about their Now or Never Encounter event.
Yeah, that one was really good. Shout out to the ladies for coming out and talking with us, about the Now or Never event. Chase and I were both there, and we got to experience it and be a part of it. It's one of those things that we said, we're offering up our platform. We want people to be able to come and share different things, and that was something that we were wanting people to go to. So it was a great opportunity for us to be able to just partner with them on that. So I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, and them helping us. What would be a non-self-deprecating way to say this? Us people who may struggle with understanding prophetic dance.
Yeah, for sure.
Them helping us in that.
Yeah.
Just thank you. I'll leave it at that. Your mini-me, Ronaldo Domingos.
Yeah, so that's the first podcast we did at the house. That one, because we talked to him about, I'm trying to remember.
I mentorship, leadership.
Those.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, mentorship and leadership. Those things are are very, very important. And just knowing, because that was the second time we had brought him on, and the role that he's in, at his church, and just being effective, those things are important. And how does he go about nurturing that kind of environment, making sure that that's present? I thought that was a, really, really, really great podcast as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just seeing him continue to mature and step up into the man the Lord's called him to be has been amazing. From there, your wife, Aiden, at the time, Aiden Keene.
Miss Keene.
But soon to be Butterwife.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even remember what we talked about, but I remember people gave us feedback about what we talked about. It was because I really had a lot of people like, yo, what you guys shared and just how vulnerable you guys were about, your obviously, we were talking about relationship dating and stuff like that. But I had a lot of great feedback from that, from people. I'm like, oh, do people usually not talk like this? From sharing our experience. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, man. And I'll just say for that, I mean, obviously we're close friends, so we see each other, but still, y'all, and we co-host this, so you have a stake in the game. But y'all still being willing in the midst of one of your busiest seasons between engagement and the wedding, of being willing to sit down for a couple hours just to even talk through your story, process it, share it with people, is something that is to be admired. Yeah, bro. Not a lot of people would have done that. As you mentioned earlier, Raleigh, the man himself.
What was the topic for that?
So at the start, he talked about like him going through the fire in his life at this point, and then we talked about I kind of shared the letter from Generosity that I'd written and kind of what it truly is, and then like what it's looked like to find our place in this world and some other things.
Yeah, but no, sorry, man. What was the title we gave that podcast?
Raleigh on going through the fire, the true nature of generosity, and finding our place in this world.
Yeah. As I kind of touched on earlier, and I asked because I was just like, I wonder what we put the title for that. But man, it was like a very because you could tell from as we sat with him, like there was a lot of weight to what he was saying because he was going through it. And so it was awesome to be able to have somebody like that, sharing his experience with us. Present time. He wasn't looking back. It was present time. He was going through it and sharing and seeing the goodness of God in various ways. And so that was really unique. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And yeah, in it, I followed the leading of the Holy Spirit and asking the question, like, what does it look like for him to find his place in this world? And that's I don't think I've ever asked that to anyone in my life. And yet that being like a question that like sat with him was super meaningful. And then I know you were at the Filipino dinner. You weren't I don't think you were at the Korean dinner, but just from either one of those, either the Korean dinner or Filipino dinner, what do you remember from the Q&As from those?
Man, yeah, no, I mean, I think it was just learning their culture from their eyes, which was really cool. Obviously, we got to eat the food, but I remember sitting over there and being able to ask questions, and just there was a lot of curiosity in the room, which is an environment that we're always trying to foster through those cultural dinners. So it was a lot. It was a lot of like, oh, I didn't know that about Filipino people. I only knew maybe one or two things, but I walked away like, okay, I feel like I know more. If I was to meet another Filipino person, I'm able to engage more in conversation.
Yeah. For the Korean dinner, it was really cool to see Hannah and Chloe and just like their heart for the nation and revival to come back to South Korea. And I didn't know about the history that South Korea had with missionaries like that. I just had no idea. And so that was super cool to be able to hear that. The last one, which, is a short one, but all the friends came on, so we had to throw it on here. I believe we titled it Bompende Wedding Message from the Groom's Suite. What do you have to say to your groomsmen, bro?
Man, shout out to you guys. You guys came, you represented. As we say in the streets, you made it do what it do. It was amazing. It was amazing because everybody was like, whenever the groomsmen, if you ever been to a wedding, the groomsmen are walking in. It just kept going. The line, and there were so many of us, we had to stagger on the stage so that it can look a certain way. But they came and they were just like, somebody said, I'll give you guys credit. Somebody was like, you could tell your friends were celebrating you. And I was like, oh, wow. I couldn't see because you guys were in my back the whole time. But from their perspective, that's what they saw. That's what they noticed. And I was like, man, thank you for sharing that. So shout out to you guys, man. Shout out to all the groomsmen that came, those that drove, those that flew in, all the love and support. We stayed up talking, hanging out, all the good things, man. You guys made that day very memorable. Also, really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. It was a good time. And I think that was definitely the most that I'd thrown at a wedding ever. So,
oh yeah,
we blessed y'all.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think that's it for the rundown that we got, man. You got any last things?
Man, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for always tuning in, for listening, for responding, giving us feedback. We love that. We want to continue to have conversations that are beneficial. And so if there's anything that's on your heart, you want to share, hit us up so we can bring you on, take us up on that offer. I feel like sometimes people don't do that, take us up on that offer. We would love to bring you on so we can talk to you, hear your perspective, see what God is doing in your life, hear your story, offer a platform for you to be able to share, because this is not our thing, it's our thing, so
yeah, bro. And yeah, I just appreciate you being a really good friend, bro. It's been fun rolling with you for these years. It's been memorable, and
still remember the torchies. All started with torchies.
True, man. We need to get some. We haven't had that in a minute.
True. It's a long time.
Oh yeah, but yeah, y'all. That'll be it for us today. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. As always, all of our information will be in the description below. If you want to support us, the podcast, the outreaches, and everything that we're doing. So until next time, until year 5, much love. God bless.